Now that Davos 2024 has come to an end, I'm going to recap some of the most sick, twisted, frightening things said there. And guys, let me just first say, I've asked a lot of people this week, hey, are you following what's going on in Davos this week? Do you know what Davos is? Do you know what the WEF is? And I am sick to my stomach at the lack of awareness around this event, around the World Economic Forum's existence. I kid you not, no more than 2 or 3 out of 10 people that I ask even know what this is, let alone follow it. And I mean this wholeheartedly. You are no better than the WEF and Klaus Schwab himself if you're not paying attention to this. You're part of the problem if you're not paying attention to this, because we the people are the only ones who have a chance to stop this crazy stuff they're talking about. This guy right here knew exactly what I'm talking about, and he died fighting for it.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it.
And I know it can be time-consuming and difficult to research this and actually know where to look to know what's going on, so that's part of my specialty. So by all means, if you want to know what's going on in the world, what you should be paying attention to, how you could fight back, connect with me on Minnect. I've made my prices as cheap as they could possibly be, because this is not about making money for me. It's about building an army of people who are informed and who know how to fight back in a legal and civil way. Links below. Let's get to it. So here is the series of crazy things that were said at Davos. Clip number 1, Klaus Schwab on his future outlook of elections.
You do not even have to have elections anymore, because you can already predict, and afterwards you can say, why do we need elections? Because we know what the result will be.
That's quite presumptuous of him to say that we'll no longer need elections because AI can predict what we're thinking already. I believe I saw somewhere that one of his exact quotes were that elections will soon be an ancient relic of the past. Clip number 2, the director of the World Health Organization speaking on Disease X.
There are things that are unknown that may happen. And anything happening is a matter of when, not if. And that was when we gave the name Disease X. So Disease X is a placeholder for unknown disease. You may even call COVID as the first Disease X. And it may happen again.
It's a placeholder for when, not if, something happens. All right, so just baked into the metrics that we're going to have another world-changing catastrophe happen, according to the director of the World Health Organization. Now here's a big one that you really have to pay attention to. I've spoken at length about this, the digital carbon footprint tracking and using CBDC as a means to punish and reward people for what they do and what they buy. Listen to this.
I would say digital and sustainable need to go hand in hand. And what do I mean? Yeah, there are initiatives like we are driving as industries, Catena X, where we are trying to measure the footprint throughout the value chain. And what would that give us? Yeah, I would have a bottle like this, and I could tell you from the iron ore to the logistics to the glass, what is the carbon footprint of this bottle? And then I could price it. And I could tell you, now you are doing good because you now pay 20 cents more, but you are very conscious that you have a green product. Yeah.
You hear that? He says bad or good, so you get charged an extra 20 cents if bad. You know, and he's speaking of a water bottle there. So what if you decide to buy a diesel truck instead of the new Prius? Would that extra 20 cents become an extra 20,000?
Bringing the kinds of sensors that people have become accustomed to, such as rings and in watches, into everyday devices, but it breaches the final frontier of privacy, that is, what people are thinking and feeling. Initially, what they will be capable of doing is very high-level brain state reading. Things like, are you tired? Are you paying attention? Is your mind wandering? Are you happy or sad? They maybe enable interaction like up, down, left, right.
So now we're talking about straight up mind reading, like a Minority Report style mind reading. So who's to say they don't start looking at what you plan on doing and charging you or adjusting your credit score or hiring based off that. Now this next dude's talking about how farming is bad and poisonous for the world.
In most of Asia, rice is still grown with traditional methods, which requires flooding the fields. And when you flood the fields, you basically kill the weeds with water, which sounds good, except it takes huge amounts of water. They basically decompose underwater, and when they do that, they release methane. And so actually rice production is one of the largest producers of methane, which is, many times more toxic in terms of greenhouse gas emissions.
Now, if you're wondering why there's massive farmer protests across Europe happening over the last 4 years, this could give you a clue as to why. And if you're wondering why the policymakers of Europe are putting forward legislation that takes away farming rights and limits the ability for farmers to farm because of nitrogen emissions, this might also give you a hint, because policy comes from places like the WEF and the UN and trickles out throughout the world. Okay, same as the whole renewable energy thing. Let's put the solution in place before we rip the old way out of existence. I mean, I know there's precision farming methods like vertical farming or robot farming, whatever. Yeah, great, awesome. I know, yes, farming is wasteful. Irrigation is extremely wasteful. I think 70% of the water that we use is used for farming irrigation. So yeah, super wasteful, super inefficient, but let's have a rock solid alternative in place that's better before we just rip it away and tear down the old way. Psychos. But this is coming from somebody who's not in favor of slowing population growth and reducing the number of people in the world, but these people here are in favor of that, so I'm sure they would think that I'm a fool. Next, 2 failed presidential candidates back to back. Coming up first, Al Gore. Now tell me on a scale from 1 to 10 what the level of sincerity is here that you feel coming from Al Gore.
The fossil fuel polluters use a portion of their wealth from digging up dead things from the earth and burning them in ways that destroy the future of humanity. They use some of their wealth to confuse people. I get a little exercised about this because I've watched it for a long time, and it's driven by pure greed. Pure greed. If we deploy electric vehicles, solar, wind, batteries, green hydrogen, and the rest, and we get to true net zero, temperatures on the earth will stop going up almost immediately.
Pure greed. Pure greed. I love how he says I get a little exercised about this in reference to being angered. That's a very musty term, but anyway. And by the way, how smart is Al Gore to just know like that what would happen with the temperature of the earth? Like that. What a brilliant scientist Al Gore must be to know without a doubt what exactly would happen if we hit net zero. I love how they rant about us emitting carbon emissions to the earth, but they travel in private jets more than almost anybody. But as John Kerry said, he is saving the future of humanity, so his greenhouse gas emissions are worth it. Climate czar.
I am convinced beyond any doubt that because of the decisions being made in the marketplace now, because, you know as well as I do, even if, I don't want this, obviously, but if you wound up with a different president who was opposed to climate crisis, I got news for you. No one politician anywhere in the world can undo what is happening now. It's the biggest transformation in the economies of the world in all of human history.
I believe what John Kerry's speaking about is the something like 70 trillion in the net zero asset managers agreement that we've talked about at length. If you are not familiar with that, check out this episode right here. And I'm in favor of making the world a cleaner and healthier place, but not the way they're trying to do it. I'm more in the camp of, hey, let's invest a lot of money, even if it's trillions of dollars, into nuclear energy, and that will give us the same amount of energy output, even more than we have right now, and it emits nearly no greenhouse gas emission. Why don't we talk about that? Because that would violate the rule of creating a problem that does not have an easy solution. Think about the war on drugs, the war on terror, the war on climate, the war on COVID. all things are very open-ended, and if they have a quick, easy solution, they're not able to extract immense amounts of wealth from the population and the tax base and control our actions and legislation. But something that was encouraging to see this week is that Representative Scott Perry reintroduced the Defund Davos Act along with 5 other Republicans. Now, this would bar U.S. funding of the Davos event, which, yes, believe it or not, we give millions of dollars to Davos every year and the WEF. So the WEF does not have the power to create legislation itself, but it has a lot of influence over governments around the world and businesses around the world, because as its Young Global Leaders program, it has all these Fortune 500 companies that are big donors and members of the WEF, and they have a ton of legislative influence with things like the UN, NGOs, these big giant donors. So it's pretty much a way for the shadowy elites to push their agenda through the governments around the world. But the WEF gets very frustrated at how difficult it is to penetrate America with these laws and policy changes they want to put forward. That's why Klaus went crazy when Trump was elected, and they did everything in their power to get him out of office. But like most things, we the people simply not being okay with this is more than enough to stop it. The problem is, right now you go around asking people, I would say less than 5% of the US population knows what Davos is or what the WEF is, which that's a problem. Like I said at the beginning, if you do not care about this, if you do not know about this, you are no better than Klaus himself. Quite honestly, if that's the case, shame on you. You're falling for the whole bread and circus thing. They're just throw entertainment at you, gossip, and where you're going out to eat, what movies out this week, what sports are on this week, because none of that matters if we let these people win, because trust me, you'll be horrified if the future they want comes to fruition. I, for one, am dead set not letting that happen. And if this message converts just one of you from being somebody who doesn't pay attention to this to somebody who does pay attention to this, I'd be very happy with that. And I can promise you one thing: when I'm president in 2036, WEF Davos will not be happy with what happens. And I assure you, I will not end up like this guy right here, because he was not paranoid enough. But there's few people out there who can match my energy, controlled rage, and healthy level of paranoia. God bless, and sit tight. 4 years of Trump, 8 years of Vivek, 8 years of me. We'll be in a good place. God bless everybody. And watch this video right here if you want, and check out this video right here if you want to know about what they intend to do with this CBDC tokenization, where they have a punishment reward system. God bless.